Well, hello, everyone. I'm Tom Murray, the Director of Innovation for Future Ready Schools, a project of Off-Red based out of Washington, D.C. Thanks so much for joining us today and for investing the time. Future Ready Schools is a national network helping school and district leaders create learner-centered systems that empower each learner to thrive both in school and beyond. Today's conversation hits close to home for all of us. Chronic absenteeism isn't just about attendance. It's about connection, belonging, purpose. And across the country, nearly 1 in 4 students is chronically absent, missing at least 10% of the school year. Behind every absence is a story. And behind every story is a student who needs to feel seen, supported, and valued. And that's why today's webinar, Everyday Matters, Building a Culture of Belonging to Reduce Chronic Absenteeism, focuses on how we can re-engage students by leading with relationships and empathy, not just punishment and compliance. We're joined by 3 incredible leaders today who live this work every day, are from very different districts across the country. Can't wait to hear from Alvin Dizon. Alvin is the Family Engagement Director at Clark County Schools District out in Nevada. Kate Kometz. Kate's a head counselor in Long Beach Unified School District, California. And Dr. Dennis Williams, the high school principal in the Hatboro-Horsham School District here in Pennsylvania. Thank you all for being here. The work you all do to help students show up, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally too. So let's start with some quick introductions, and then we're going to dig into the conversation. Alvin, let's head over to you. Quick introduction for the group.
Good morning. I'm Alvin Dizon, English teacher by trade, and now the Director of Family Engagement here at Clark County School District in Nevada, Las Vegas, Nevada.
Alvin, tell us a little bit about Clark County, just real quick. I should have teed that up a little bit better there. Just a little bit about the size of the district and those that you serve.
Okay, we are currently the 5th largest school district in the nation. We serve a little under 300,000 students here at Las Vegas, 300 something schools altogether. So huge district, lots of work to do.
Yeah, Kate, over to you. Tell us about Long Beach and you.
Yeah, thank you for having me today. I work in Long Beach Unified School District. I am currently the head counselor. I started my career as a classroom teacher, teaching 1st and 5th grade. Moved into counseling when I realized the classroom wasn't going to be the best space for me. Worked across our district. I work in the 4th largest district in the state of California. And we serve about 61,000 students this year. And I've worked here since 1996. So, and I'm now supporting counselors in our school district at the elementary level.
Awesome. Dennis, over to you. Tell us about your high school role.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everybody. Dennis Williams. I'm the principal here at Hatboro-Horsham High School in the Hatboro-Horsham School District. Pennsylvania is a little bit different. So there's 500 school districts in the state of Pennsylvania, and those school districts range in size. So just in our county alone, there are 23 other high schools. Our school district, we are a K to 12 district, 4 elementary schools, 1 middle school, 1 high school. I'm the principal of the high school. Our high school, medium-sized high school, we have just under 1,400 kids. But we have a high school down the street in a different district that is literally 2 miles away, and they have 5,000 kids in their building, right? So Pennsylvania is a little bit different than some other states and from a district standpoint.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Dennis. And I'll tell you, we are intentional at Future Ready to bring you different perspectives, different size districts from all across the country. Alvin with that district-wide perspective, but have also served in the classroom. Kate with that elementary perspective has also served in the classroom, and Dennis with the high school perspective and also served in the classroom. And so thank you, the 3 of you, for being here today. I want to jump in and really focus from the get-go of let's focus in on some root causes, those around relationships and connection. That we know that chronic absenteeism is often a symptom and not always the root issue or the root cause. And from each of your perspectives, what are some of the underlying causes of chronic absenteeism that we've seen in our schools? How have relationships and connections played a role to address them? That's what part of what we'll get into throughout. We saw across the nation statistically, chronic absenteeism kind of doubled during COVID. We've seen a little bit of a pullback, which is a positive since then, just nationally across the board. But talk to us about some of the things that we're seeing in our schools, some of the root causes that you've seen, and we can start there. Who wants to jump in?
This is a hard one. I'll jump in. And again, no right or wrong answer, like you kind of alluded to, Tom, in the beginning, that every chronic absentee kid has a story. So I think that it is individualized, but I think a lot of times it's students struggling to find a purpose or a reason that they come to school. And some teachers and schools are great at doing that, and others not so much. Some of our teachers are out of touch and need to be kind of re-energized as well. So I think that when students don't see the value, or their parents don't see the value as well, then it's just not a high priority to get up and get to school and consistently. And I hate to say that because I don't like to think that of other people, but I think that we did get into bad habits during COVID. And some of those kids are, at the end of the system, closer to, high school, obviously, or in high school. And then some of our students are just starting, and hopefully that trend is gonna shift. But I think we did get into some bad habits during COVID as a society, and we haven't fully outgrown that yet. So that's just my perspective on it.
Yeah. Alvin or Dennis, anything to add?
I think Kate makes a good point in that, there's so many factors tied to chronic absenteeism, right? Some of those factors could be untreated health issues, mental health issues, family responsibilities, right? A true like academic disengagement. And the fact that oftentimes that disengagement, when you're absent, results in some sort of punitive discipline, right? So there's a lot of factors that I think really play a role in chronic absenteeism. But Tom, you kind of started it off, and that's where I see all of this. Creating those relationships can be one of the protective factors when students feel like they have a trusted adult. Now, again, it looks a little bit different at the elementary level than it does at the high school level. Creating that sense of belonging for kids that allows them to feel like, you know what, I may not want to go to school today, but this is a place where I feel like I belong, and these are people who I know take care of me. I think that's a protective factor in hopefully addressing some of those issues of absenteeism. It's not the overall cure, but it is a significant factor.
Absolutely. I'd like to add to Dr. Williams's comments about how, yes, we've got to make connections and make the kids feel welcome. But in doing home visits and finding out, we've seen some of the barriers, at least in Las Vegas, that the family barriers, parents are working and somebody needs to stay home and take care of the younger children, or an older relative who cannot be left home alone. So some of those things are well beyond the classroom. I mean, we've got teachers that can be as engaging as possible, schools that are just as engaging and inviting for the students. There's something beyond sometimes that they just cannot get past.
Yeah, certainly adding that, I think, and to share from my end here, one of the things I often share working with people, this issue really hits close to home for me, because when I look at some of those statistics, I recognize there was a point in time that my daughter was one of those statistics. And part of it, I like to talk about the hidden stories within. And some of you have alluded to this a little bit over time. Sometimes when I'm sharing with people, I'll put data on the screen and say, in the past 14 months, the child's been absent 35 times. They've been tardy 20 times. What judgments might we start to make? And sometimes we make these judgments about our kids. Well, kid's lazy, kid doesn't want to be there, kid's disengaged, and then parents are a mess, home life's of a mess. And lots of folks will say those things, and I'll share the follow-up piece of like, hey, that's my daughter. And people kind of like, oh, wait, oh, and thanks for the shout out. Appreciate y'all, right? But part of why I share that is then I share the why, the root cause. And I share the journey. And the moment I start to share, it's every one of those absences was sitting in a doctor's office. Every one of those, except for one, tardies, was coming back to school late from an appointment. And so sometimes the root cause in cases like that, we understand, right? There's those moments of, hey, so there's going to be medical needs that supersede sometimes attendance levers, even though I got the letters from the district, and I'm in a great district that understood because they understood the story, especially focusing on those that are disengaged, those that just struggle to get up and get out of bed. Obviously, what it looks like with a first grader versus a 12th grader can be a little bit different when we think through it. Dennis, I'm going to come to you with the next question first, in part because I'm thinking about the podcast we did, and you pushed my thinking on something. I'm not sure I ever shared this with you. We did a Future Ready podcast maybe 2 years ago now, and I was talking about access, and we got to increase access for kids and that. And you actually pushed my thinking a little bit and said this notion around belonging is what your goal is. And pushed me on this idea around the party example. And what I want to tee up the next question, I want to go to you first, because I'd love for you to maybe even share that, is this idea that, belonging really is one of the most powerful predictors of attendance. We know that. So how have we intentionally built a school or district culture where students feel seen, valued, where they want to show up every day? And what does that look like in practice? And Dennis, I'd love to bring us back to that moment to where, if you know the story that I'm sharing about the invitation and the party, if you give that example, because I think it helps differentiate. We're not just providing access for kids, but this real idea of belonging. Could we start there, Dennis?
Sure. I feel like creating a sense of belonging involves the idea that every student, right, no matter race, religion, gender, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, cognitive ability, whatever, feel as if they belong, right? So building those relationships creates that belonging. And Tom, that example actually comes from Crown Apple and a book that he wrote called Dignity Through a Sense of Belonging. And he uses this example, and I use it all the time because it is so powerful. We often get caught on access as the thing that is holding us back from creating a sense of belonging with both kids and families, right? Like access is the issue. In actuality, access isn't necessarily the issue. And the example is this: pretty much everybody's been invited to a party, right? Whether that party comes from an evite, from an invitation in the mail, or somebody says, hey, we're hanging out, why don't you come join us? That invitation is your access to the party, right? However, when you get to that party, if nobody opens the door for you, if nobody says hello to you, if there's music playing and nobody wants to dance, nobody offers you a drink, you're in that party, but you don't feel as if you belong. Well, for most of our kids, their access is their zip code, right? They come to our schools because of where they live. So that access piece is easy. But when they step through our doors, if they don't see things that look like them, or find people who look like them, or have something in the building that represents who they are and or who they want to be, oftentimes they feel as if they don't belong. So again, access is critical, but it's not just about that access. So to me, like investing in those relationships, trying as if they're in a place that accepts them for who they are, that allows them to grow and learn.
Yeah, Dennis, I love that. Now I want you to, I'll let you keep rolling there. Now talk about some of the things you've specifically done at your high school, because I know we've had this conversation in person as well. Some of the things you specifically done to create that sense of belonging.
Yeah. So again, I'm big and always have been on student voice. I think it is so critical. So student voice from the standpoint of how do we create an environment that students enjoy coming to, obviously still take care of business academically and so on, but create an environment where they feel as if they're heard. So from that perspective, we've had students who have sat on curriculum committees with us to talk about resources, right? And resources that they might want to see that's still aligned to both local and state standards. We've had kids help us redesign our handbook for things such as dress code and cell phone policies and those kinds of things. Most recently, we were in a position where we've added 4 students to our school board as school board representatives, so that they can speak from the standpoint of what occurs at school and what potentially could occur at school. It's a really nice bridge between the adults, which oftentimes on school boards, they usually don't have kids in the building and maybe don't have experience in this field. So as that that kind of transition between. So those are just some of the examples. We do a different mural every year. Our National Art Honor Society does a mural every year. That mural is kind of picked and designed from students, by students. Over the last couple of years, we've looked to add something from a cultural competency standpoint every single year. So making sure that kids have a role. They're spending 7.5 to 8 hours a day here. If they're an athlete, that time could be 10 hours a day. They damn sure should have some say in terms of what the place looks and feels like.
Absolutely. Kate or Alvin, want to jump in?
I can jump in. I was thinking, I like that story. I hadn't heard the party story exactly like that before, but I was thinking that to your point of if someone doesn't open the door, right? So it starts before the kid even gets into the classroom, whether it's the cafeteria worker that says hello, the recreation aide, if they're, creating a welcoming environment on the playground, in the hallways, office staff, who's answering the door, who's welcoming the kids. It all starts with the adults that aren't even necessarily in the classroom. So I think it's not just training teachers to be responsive and create that sense of belonging. It's the whole school system, the whole staff, because it doesn't, like I said, it's not just isolated to the classroom. It's the whole package, the whole building. So
I'll take it to the next step here from Clark County School District. We have family engagement centers in 13 locations here in the district, and we have them inviting parents. They're at the kiss and go line, right, giving handouts, flyers, and saying, hey, we've got this class, we've got this introductory class, we've got early childhood workshops. So the idea that making it more accessible and inviting for parents helps create that sense of family and relationship, then it should filter down to the students feeling the same way back at the school. I love the idea that Dr. Williams, you guys are including your student voice in your systems. We have what's called a superintendent student advisory council that meets once a month. We have invited 2 students, one who is your primarily student council level student, and then another that is non-student council, non-super active kind of student. And 2 representatives come to this monthly meeting. They meet with district leadership. They bring up topics that they're interested in talking about, and then we craft future meetings based on that. And basically, the idea is whatever discussions, trainings, presentations they hear in the superintendent student advisory council, they take back to their schools, and that filters down in each of the high school levels that way. And we hear their voice, then they share what happens, and then hopefully it builds that sense of community and that sense of belonging for everybody involved.
Yeah, so well said, and some practical ideas there. One of the things that we know is that student well-being and attendance really are deeply intertwined. So let's talk about some other strategies, and we started to certainly hit on some there as well, that we found really most effective in supporting the emotional and mental health needs of students really who are frequently absent or disengaged. And we recognize none of us here are medical doctors when we reference the term mental health. We recognize that piece. When we think about it from the emotional needs, just the overall the social needs and those connections there. And I'll start us off with just one example. We've been doing some events around the country where we're connecting belonging with workforce. And one of the things that I used in the introduction, I used the word purpose very intentionally, as districts create opportunities for students and the sense of belonging, going back to that idea around workforce connections, where students are discovering who I am. I'll give a shout out to Dr. Matt Friedman in Quakertown. They just shared something recently that in Pennsylvania, some other districts out in Cajon Valley in California have done this for a long time as well, where they're using the RIASEC framework starting in kindergarten, where kids are starting to understand RIASEC. It's been around for a long time. It's a great tool, great framework. You have to use it correctly, though, for kids to help understand who they are as a learner. So, for instance, the A in RIASEC is artistic. Now, what they intentionally do is they use career language starting in kindergarten across the board of like, hey, what do A's do in life? So if I'm artistic, I might like to be a graphic designer. Now, they all do it with the understanding that things change over time. This isn't about putting kids in a bucket and that's where you have to stay for all 13 years. It's not that at all. But what they've found and what I've heard across the board, as they've connected folks to that workforce connection, even starting young through self-discovery, through exploration, it's really intertwined with that sense of belonging as kids learn, here's who I am. This is what I'm all about. This is what I'm passionate about. This is what I want to do in life. And then as districts give opportunities to explore those things, all the belonging stuff connects to it. We look at some of the traditional CTE programs in this as well. Kids typically don't say, why are we learning this? What's the relevance? This has no comparativeness to my life. And that goes back to purpose. And so one strategy that I'll share that I've seen starting at kindergarten all the way through 12th is really identifying the purpose and helping kids identify their purpose in life, their passions in life, and then giving opportunities to explore related to that. To shout out to Matt, shout out to David Miyashiro out in California, some of the work out there. Lots of districts doing great stuff there, but I think it connects well here. So one idea on my end, but now that I've given you all some time to think, strategies you all want to offer related to that, specific to the emotional mental health needs that our students have that are frequently disengaged.
I think, Tom, and again, to your point, like the idea of first being able to identify and quantify, like, why, what is creating that disengagement? Is it teaching kids how to cope with emotional and regulation skills? Is it about safe spaces? Is it showing kids how to process struggles? Is it a family issue? Is it the basic needs, right? Food, safety, stability, like all of those things kind of are the underpinnings of well-being. So I think once you can identify those things and provide resources for kids and families, I think the other things start to at least feel manageable to take on, right? So I can tell you for us here, one of the things that we've created with the help of, again, of students and families and even the local community, we've created a clothing closet here, right? So kids know that they can come during a period of the day. Doesn't have to be advertised. They can walk into that clothing closet and they can walk out with a bag of either really nice used clothing, or in some cases, brand new clothing, because of connections that we've made with some local malls with, last season's clothing that they couldn't move. So they would donate that stuff to us. We have an organization in our community that provides meals on the weekends for families, because again, many of our kids, Monday through Friday, they're relying on us for breakfast and lunch. But once the weekend hits, food scarcity looks a little bit different. So we have an organization that works with us where, again, we can provide kids with that. And then also creating funds to kind of cover the cost of some of those, what I like to call like privilege items that kids take for granted, right? Buying a yearbook, that's a privileged item, right? Participating in the senior class trip, that's a privileged item. So I think, to answer your question in summary, if we can identify what those issues are, then I think we work to try to address those issues, which plays a significant role in being able to tackle everything else.
Mm-hmm. I would add on that for the elementary level in Long Beach, we've adopted a curriculum for our social emotional learning, which is the Harmony Academy curriculum, which has been really beneficial for I would say many of our students. We have pushed it out with our counselors and facilitators over the last 2 to 3 years. And so there's a key component with Harmony. They call them everyday practices, which are Harmony goals, which are kind of co-created with the students' expectations and ways of being that they want for their classroom. So it's unique to every classroom. And then buddy ups and meetups. So it gives teachers, classroom teachers, structures that can support the social emotional learning and the opportunities for students to share and learn from each other. And so that has made a big difference in many of our buildings, because teachers have the resources that they need in order to support their students in communicating effectively with each other, learning to regulate their emotions, learning how to talk to peers, adults. And we also use it with the adults. So we've used it with during staff meetings to get staff familiar with the Harmony program. And we've also used it at the different level offices. We use it with counselors, we use it with principals, assistant principals. We use it with our clerks in the office staff we give them opportunities to buddy up and meet up at meetings. So it's more of a culture of appropriate ways to communicate and interact with each other that has really proved beneficial for our community.
Very nice, thanks, Kate. I was going to add for CCSD, we do have classes for families to take, and it's called our University of Family Learning, and they can take a look at the menu and kind of select which ones. We have English classes for adults. We also have classes for adults who want to help students navigate literacy skills, math skills, right? Giving them that opportunity to build academic support in the home, then take it to the school. That way, then students feel a little more involved and ready for classes that they're going to be doing and taking. We also have just simple ones that how to navigate the whole school district, because they're new to the country. They don't know all the little programs and things that we do and the nuances that happen at the school, like what is Class Dojo, right? So that we have a class that just kind of introduces them to that and how to engage in that system, as simple as it is to us from the classroom and from a school perspective. That might be so difficult for a a family, for example, coming from out of the country.
Yeah, Alvin, that's a great lead into the next conversation I wanted to have, really around family and community engagement. And Dennis, I know this is, I believe, something, I think you did your doctorate work in this area as well. And, and certainly Kate, as a counselor, this is certainly part of your world, but we know how much families really are partners in this work, not bystanders, right? This isn't something that we should be doing to them, but something they're really a vital part of. So talk about some ways, and Alvin, you just certainly led in with some great ways to strengthen family and community partnerships, such as your Family Engagement Center, obviously one of the largest districts in the country. Maybe if I'm a smaller district, might be a little bit harder to have some of those pieces, but maybe it can be done at scale, right? And so we think about that, or different home visits. So what are some of the strategies that you've used really to engage families here? And Alvin, you certainly let us off with anything there. Dennis or Kate, anything you want to add about some different strategies in working with parents to really support the notion around chronic absenteeism?
One thing I'd add is we've had, it's not at every school, but many of our schools, either an opportunity. We also do have family engagement facilitators at our sites that do a lot of the work that Alvin's kind of alluded to and shared. But we have individual, like, coffee with the principal once a month, or coffee with the counselor. And so it's just an opportunity for not necessarily teachers, parents, families, caregivers to interact just on a more, there might be a slight agenda. They might have a few things that they're going to share about what's happening at the school, maybe some upcoming cultural events. They might highlight as maybe something around parent-teacher conferences, giving them tips to talk with the teacher. But then it's really just an opportunity for the principal or counselor to listen to the families, and also answer any questions that they may have, and talk about things that they would want to hear about in the future. So again, it's not at every site, but many of our sites have picked up on that as an opportunity to increase family engagement and interaction.
I think one of the things, and again, just to follow up on what both Alvin and Kate said, is schools do a really, really good job of involving families. We don't do a great job of engaging them, right? And those are two very, very different things. So I think the idea of, sometimes it could be very simple, right? We tell people, well, it's on the website. But if a family can't translate, if your website doesn't translate, and if the communications that you're sending, people can't get in their language, then we're doing a disservice, right? So we need to ensure that, consistent and culturally responsive communication, right? When we talk about how to engage and take the perspectives and voices and concerns of everybody to create some change. One of the things that I would encourage people to, again, oftentimes our community is our most underused resource, right? In any school district, 50 to 60% of your community don't have kids in the district, but yet they're paying taxes, right? So how to create value for them? How do we engage them for the benefit of the students and the school district community? So bring them in. What resource can they be? We've done that, and we've found that it has opened up doors for community scholarships. It has opened up doors for internships. I mentioned to you before that clothing closet. That was a conversation with a local partner about what we were looking to do. Oftentimes, we don't focus on the community and the role that the community can play in terms of engaging families and providing what we need for our students. And I think that's a critical part.
Awesome. Now, Alvin, you kicked the conversation off. Is there anything else you wanted to add? Because I didn't really frame up the question and you were kind of sharing it, but I want to go back to you. Anything else you want to add around community engagement? This is your whole world and the work that you do. So any other pieces? If not, that's okay. We can move to the next question.
So everybody out there, I used to be the community engagement director. I'm now the family engagement director. So bringing community in was kind of my jam. And now I'm changing hats and reshifting gears. But bringing the community in is amazing outlook. If you think about back to when we did home visits, we included and invited our elected officials as well as some of our very active community partners, so that they saw the problems, the barriers, as well as what we can do. We currently have our new superintendent who is big about engaging community, and I love what you said, Dr. Williams, where how do you go from involvement to engagement? Right, take it to that next level. She is all about us bringing in the community. We have monthly meetings with community partners and talk about what we're doing as a district, and then also inviting them to be a part of that. we have the community partners who are also a part of our family engagement. So let's say a credit union, a local bank, they offer financial literacy courses for our University of Family Learning. They're part of our catalog. So we've taken them, invited them in many different ways and different aspects, so that their engagement is not just, we're here and we are here as a service, but we are actually a part of that service, and it's a whole village per se. I hate to use that, but it is truly a village that's coming together to create what we like to say a destination district here in Las Vegas.
Awesome. Love it. Moving from reactive, which we find ourselves as educators often, right, trying to, with all the things that are on our plates, to really being proactive really does require that alignment. And so let's talk about any of the structural changes that have made, like things like maybe advisory periods or certain early warning systems or even curriculum aspects of things that really have helped your schools intervene earlier and even more effectively. Any specific tools? I know that we mentioned the Harmony curriculum through National University, certainly one of our partners at Future Ready. They do incredible work, really best of breed, especially K6, kind of K7. One of the things I'll throw out there, we did get a question in the chat. Shout out to Kevin for asking other programs for secondary, things at high school, things that we might be able to recommend there, support there. And so I'll turn that over to whoever wants to jump in of just any structural supports or changes that have been made, really to get to the heart of it, to help us intervene earlier, or any tools that we're using as well.
I can speak to the high school perspective for the secondary question. And again, our job's a little bit different. I've got 4 years to take a kid 14 to 15 years old and 18 to 19 and make sure that they leave our building prepared, for their future, right? So that runway is a little bit shorter than most. But to answer the question, we've incorporated advisory. This is our second year with advisory. It's a 15-minute advisory window that we run every Monday. And it takes place in between after our second period class. And one of the commitments that we made, because of wanting to build relationships and belonging with kids, that teacher has those same kids for 4 years. So they may not be kids that they teach, but they know that every Monday for 15 minutes, they're going to develop a relationship with this teacher over a 4-year period. And again, those advisory lessons are lessons that we create. There are also some student-driven lessons. We had one last week, or the week before last, that was completely driven by our students who are part of a restorative practice team. And the lesson was on circle. Those students actually delivered the lessons in classes with the teachers. So those are some things. And we also moved to increasing and shifting a lunch and learn model. So our kids no longer eat at a certain time. We've got a 65-minute window where they can get lunch and eat anywhere in the building. And at the same time, there's a window of time where teachers are available for additional support. So providing kids with an opportunity to really kind of experience what post-secondary looks like. Nobody told me when to eat lunch in college, right? Nobody told me to wake up. Nobody told me. I did actually go to class. Tom and I went to school together. I did actually go to class, but nobody told me that I needed to eat in a certain place. So part of developing responsible adults who can be responsible, citizens is how do we teach them responsibility? And that has really kind of helped do that for us. So those are just a couple of examples at the secondary level of how to develop.
I love that. I'm taking notes over here, Dr. Williams. I'm like, I like this idea. I would like to add that attendance, if we're talking specifically around attendance, it can't just be one person in the building. It has to be a team effort. So we've really put a lot of effort onto attendance teams at schools. They have typically the counselor, the office clerk, office supervisor, sometimes the principal, a teacher, to get that perspective. We haven't added a student, but I'm liking that idea. School psychologists, social workers. So it is really a whole team approach to, so when a student is absent, maybe after a day or two, Ideally, the teacher's going to get on the phone and call. If not, someone else on a team. So we have lists on in our dashboard, students that are kind of chronically absent or like on the edge. I forgot there's a word and it's escaped me, but like almost chronically absent. And those are the kids that we're kind of targeting, making sure they're getting more regular phone calls, home visits if necessary. So and then there is, we have goals for students. There might be a contract for some of our students that are, miss a lot of days. So and then we do whole class incentives. We might have a lunch with a loved one for those students that only miss one day. Out of the week, we do attendance certificates. There's improvement awards. So it's not just like, oh, you have perfect attendance, but maybe you were in the 85 range and now you're up to 88. So we're going to honor that growth and improvement. So again, that can't be done by one person. It really has to be a team. And that's what we've really emphasized over the last 3 or 4 years. So we're just definitely seeing some improvement, but again, it's a work in progress and celebrating when we do have those gains.
Yeah. Alvin, how about you? I'm curious, from just such a massive scale,
Yes.
You're talking hundreds of schools, what it's like to shift a system or change something structurally, right? And just the time and the resources and the energy, and not saying it's easy to do in one building. Don't mean that at all. But when you look at the magnitude at scale, these are massive undertakings and conversations. So Alvin, what might you add? Any tools that you recommend that you're using throughout, and obviously K-12 from your perspective there too?
And I don't want to take the whole time, but a short preview, just a preview of what some of the things that we're doing. So we have professional learning, targeted professional learning for school administrators to kind of take it to the next step. Going back to the home visits, once we make connections, once we find the kids that are not coming to school, then we go in and we provide a backpack with supplies that were donated by some of our wonderful partners, community partners, and then we also make note that kid is coming the next day, but we also make note at the school site that they have to know that kid is coming. There needs to be a plan in place to receive them. They're not going to come into school, go to their first period, and just get lost in the mess of 3,000 kids, right? That high school is way too big. There is a team on site that's ready to receive them. It might be a community and schools liaison, a counselor, one of the social workers, right? But somebody somewhere in every school is in the know that we connected with student number 1, and that student is coming back on Tuesday. They will be received with open arms and kind of re-engaged into the school system because they've been gone for so long, or even missed a couple of weeks, right? We don't want them to just go for the day and then not come back the second day. That's one way of training and learning for our schools. We have outreach programs that we've partnered with, like I said, community and schools, some wraparound services, like we call it the Harbor, and that's kind of like a service where they provide training and support for families all around, as well as the students themselves, right? Truancy prevention programs and outreach systems that we have. Workforce connections, you said workforce earlier. We have those, but each school or region has what we call an attendance officer, and they do their community outreach as well. So there are different layers from our level here that we have sent out and pushing into the school, making sure to make connections and re-engage and get those kids back in seats, as well as partnering with community members. We do have stickers that we put on that we offer communities, partners and businesses to put on their windows, like window clings, and if see students there during the school day, the number is right there. They can call us, and an attendance officer from one of our buildings will be coming to that business, to the 7-Eleven, to McDonald's, and pick them up and bring them back to school.
There we go. In looking at this, as you're all sharing so many different strategies and ideas and thoughts, and we certainly know a couple of things. There's no one right way, one right solution for every district across the country. That's never our approach, right? But in recognizing the importance of having this multifaceted, multi-tiered approach to attacking the issue, trying to get it early, not having this conversation on day 40 when the kid is out, but recognizing patterns, recognizing things over time. The multi-tiered with families as well, not just a student conversation, right? That sense of belonging is certainly something in the classroom that is front and center that we need, but the parents and guardians, and just what an important piece that they are as well to the puzzle here and helping to solve some of these issues. So I have two more questions for you, shorter on each of them, but I want to be really practical as well. We know that every day really does matter, and every student, we absolutely, every one of us and all of us listening would say counts. So what's one thing you'd encourage school leaders watching today to either start, stop, or strengthen as they work to build a culture where every student wants to show up and wants to thrive? One thing. What do you got?
Oh, that's a good question, Tom. I'd say, and again, just very quickly, strengthen your focus on belonging over attendance rates, because when kids feel seen, valued, connected, showing up becomes natural. Attendance rates will take care of themselves.
Powerful piece of advice. Alvin or Kate, you want to add one?
I would say get to know those students that are not coming to school and figure out, kind of to your point earlier, Tom, which is, find out their story. What's going on? Is there something that the school can help with? Or is it that they need a little grace because there is a medical issue and it's just they're going to be out, but we know they're going to come back and we're going to welcome them when they come back. So getting to know the stories and figuring out how to get them connected or reconnected.
Absolutely. Invest in them, make them feel heard and important so that they know that that's a place that they want to be. I mean, they go home and that's kind of where they sleep and eat, but then it's optional, at least in their mind, that school is not really a thing, but they want to go. We want them to think that that's very, very the place that they want to go to, and they are expecting a good time, a learning environment, a safe space. So invest in that.
All right. So I'm going to give you each as a last question here, and it kind of builds on what we just shared. You shared something practical there as well, but 30 seconds or less. Would love to hear of just one tool or one other piece of advice you have for leaders, something that's on your heart today, something that you didn't get to share because I didn't ask. So just kind of one final piece from each of you, 30 seconds or less. Who wants to jump in and go first?
I'll take that first one. From the district level, I think looking out at the schools, if they engage their families, again, it's my new hat, my new role, engage their families, that becomes the important talk at home, at their dinner table, about how school is important, right? So as long as parents and families are pulled in and brought into the school folds, I think the rest will kind of work its way in.
Awesome.
I would add on, although students are the priority, I do think taking care of the adults in the room or in the space is important too. So not just thinking about how we support students and their social emotional learning, but also how are we welcoming adults in the room, all of our adults, from the classroom to the cafeteria, playground, everything in between.
Awesome, Kate. And that could be a webinar in and of itself, right? Taking care of the people that take care of the people. Love it. Thanks for bringing that in too. Thanks for bringing that up. Dennis, over to you for a final word.
Ooh, I get to wrap this up, huh? I had a mentor who once told me, trust comes before compliance, right? So I feel like investing in knowing students and families before you ask them to change is critical. When people feel seen and valued, they show up, not because they have to, but because they feel like they belong.
Awesome. Brilliantly said, my friends. That is all the time we have for today, but what a powerful conversation it's been. Alvin, Kate, Dennis, thank you so much for your wisdom, for sharing your stories, your ideas, and most for your unwavering commitment to our kids and the communities in which you serve. Today's discussion did remind us that attendance isn't just a number on a dashboard. It's often a reflection of how connected our kids feel. When we help them believe that they matter, they're going to show up more often, because every day truly does matter. If you enjoyed today's webinar, we want to invite you to our next virtual event, which is actually going to look different. This was pretty one-directional, except for some comments. It's on November 6th, and it's going to be an interactive virtual workshop entitled Empowered to Lead, Nurturing the Whole Child And for more information, you can visit futureready.link/nurturing workshop. We're going to use Zoom. We're going to have lots of conversations. We're going to get into groups. They're going to be very, very interactive to take what we talked about here and go even deeper. We want to invite you to that. We also want to give a huge shout out to our partners at National University. Again, call out the incredible no-cost Harmony curriculum available for your team and for their continued partnership and for helping schools across the nation strengthen relationships and belonging. For more, make sure to check out futureready.link/harmony. If you'd like to learn more about today's topic, find additional resources, check out futureready.org. If you're a district leader, we would love for you to stay connected and join our Future Ready Schools network. Thank you, our friends, for joining us as amazing panelists, for our Future Ready team behind the scenes today, and most of all, to you, our viewers, for the work you do each and every day for the kids that you serve. Stay connected with us here on X, on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Blue Sky, all the things. And don't forget that every day matters because every student matters. My friends, we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.